Defendant for Los Angeles County, Philip Dube. Philip, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being on the show tonight.
How are you, sir?
All right, all right. So, look, clearly this wasn't a surprise, right? We talked about this case many, many times. But I'll tell you what, listening to the prosecutor talk there, one thing that I come away with in this trial, besides the tragic nature of the events, was this was a case that felt like there was a really good investigation, and this was a really good case tried by this prosecution.
Absolutely. A lot of people think that when you go into those states that are more thinly populated, like West Virginia, that they're not going to use the resources and the manpower to take on the cause of a missing 15-year-old girl. They'll just chalk it up maybe as a runaway or a girl who's truant and troubled and, or what else. But no, the evidence led them. And I think one of the most powerful pieces of evidence that didn't get a lot of discussion were those human cadaver dogs. They pick up the scent of blood, bone, and tissue, and it was clearly in the back of his truck. That was very damaging.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't discuss that a lot. There were so many other really damaging pieces of evidence in this case. I mean, they just came one after the other after the other. And that certainly was one of them as well. One of the interesting things about this case was the defense decided not to put on any case at all during their case in chief. During the mercy phase, again, we didn't hear at all from the defense. I want to know if that surprised you, and maybe if you think they're saving it up perhaps for the sentencing phase when the judge actually makes that final determination.
Well, that's all that's really left. What's he going to do? Take the stand and say he's sorry? He's not going to make any incriminating admissions now that he's convicted and facing sentencing. He's going to leave that to a reviewing court to see if they have a sufficient record below. I don't see a higher court reversing this conviction. I truly believe that had he taken the stand, it would have only made it worse for him. And, unfortunately, you can get a magnificently fair trial. You have a great judge, a great jury, you have great counsel, even a decent prosecutor. The only wedge that's being driven between you and your freedom is the evidence. And sometimes that's just what it is. He could not overcome this very incriminating heap of evidence.
But in sentencing, wouldn't it make sense for them, Philip, to just bring somebody in to say, hey, this guy was on drugs back then. He's a different person now. He's cleaned his life up. He's someone that can live a productive life, even if it is behind bars. Give him the possibility of a second chance somewhere down the road. I mean, that's how the judge has to look at it. Because certainly this jury wasn't going to like him. This was a horror show, right? This was a horrible, horrible thing. But maybe the judge can see it from a different perspective, that he's someone who perhaps at some point can live a productive life.
Yeah, that's very possible, but I don't know why, but this guy strikes me as if he has no intimates in his orbit. That the only real people he had were, the live-in girlfriend whose daughter he murdered, maybe a couple of his drug buddies, and maybe a couple of coworkers. It doesn't sound like he has a really broad circle of friends or family who would come to his rescue. At the end of the day, what you have is a heroin addict who is probably strung out on the day of the murder, who committed a vicious killing against a 15-year-old. What could somebody say? Now, what I might do is bring in somebody from the Department of Corrections to talk about all the rehabilitation that he will go through, explain all the services he'll get, the rehabilitation he'll get to help him overcome drug addiction, so that maybe a judge can go easy on him and give him a chance at liberty after a significant amount of time behind bars.
Yeah, no question about it. And going easy, I think, is a little bit of an overstatement because, again, even though he might become eligible for parole in 15 years, there is by no means he's going to get parole in 15 years. So, just the fact that there's the option or opportunity for that at some time, I think is something that can be looked at. All right, Philip, stand by. There's another trial that we're following out of Florida. Jury selection began today in the trial of Nicholas Cruz, the accused gunman in the Parkland shooting. He is now on trial.